I don't want to share slides just yet. I will in a moment. But today we're talking about how to build your confidence. And the reason why this is so important to me is because when I built my most recent online course, I did a survey of my audience asking, what are you hoping to learn in this course? And these are all entrepreneurs. So I was thinking they would say things like, pricing or how to get clients or how to, get big on social media. But one of the biggest things that they were dealing with was a lack of confidence. And I was like, wow, if I didn't realize that, my whole course would have flopped because I did not solve the biggest problem that a lot of entrepreneurs have, which is confidence. And that makes sense because when you're an employee, you have a 9 to 5 and there are often tasks given to you. So you're confident this is the right thing you should be doing at that time. Unfortunately, as an entrepreneur, it's not the case. So that is what happens. We become less confident, and then we have almost like this chronic anxiety of what's going on with our business, like this fight or flight, feast or famine, so on and so forth. So what I want to do today is an extension of what we talked about last time, which is just getting the nuts and bolts of your business down and go into the mindset part, the routines part, the planning part that allows you to take better action on everything we talked about before. So that is the goal. And what I'm going to do now is start sharing my screen and we'll see. Cool. So again, I realize that a lot of entrepreneurs lack confidence, and as a result, they don't get the results they're looking for because of that. So I put together what I call the confidence equation. So the confidence equals clarity plus evidence plus momentum. So clarity is knowing what you want and why, but also just knowing who you are and what you have to offer to your audience. After that, evidence, because confidence comes from past experiences, not pep talks or anything like that. So just doing little things like keeping track of the fact that you are doing a good job at your business. And I'll just ask right now in the chat, yes or no. Do you keep track of positive feedback you get from your clients or customers? So if someone sends you an email saying, hey, thanks for this product, this service, this last coaching session, whatever it is, do you keep track of those things? If the answer is no, I'm going to encourage you to do so going forward, because again, that's how we build this confidence through that evidence. And I'll give you more tips on how to do so later on. And then lastly, momentum. So how do we keep moving forward even when things get messy? And the benefit of having a schedule is even when things get messy, like I told you, I didn't realize that both today and tomorrow, all my kids were out of school. So I'm like, great, that's not on my schedule. The benefit of having momentum and routines is even when things get completely thrown off, you know how to get back on your routine because you have a routine, right? So I know we can never plan how our day is going to go, but we can actually plan how it starts. And if we have the system in place to do so, then we'll be in a really good spot. So Jay's saying, not really, not yet. I'll say that way. Carmelita, yes, you are doing that. Awesome. So yeah, these are things we want to do because often as an entrepreneur, like the big wins, they're few and far between. So those small wins, again, even like a small piece of feedback on your LinkedIn post or whatever, we want to make sure that we're aware of that and we're tracking that. All right, so with that, let me share my screen again, and we're going to go deeper into mindset. And again, this is something that I think a lot of people just ignore or skip because often when you're trying to grow your business, you just want the nuts and bolts. You're like, hey, just tell me how to make more money, right? When people say things like, meditate or journal, it's like hard to draw that direct line towards actually solving a problem. And when you get that type of advice, like here's how much you should charge, or here's how to get clients, I think of that more as an aspirin, right? It takes care of an immediate pain that you have. But really what you also want to have are vitamins, right? So something that's like some kind of routine you have on a daily basis that just maintains your level of efficiency, in this case with your work. And it helps you prevent getting sick or having trouble going forward as well. So when we talk about mindset, that's what we're talking about. And one thing that I encourage everyone to do is to document what are called epic thoughts. And I got this from Dr. Michael Gervais. I think I talked about this live with you before. Epic thoughts are when you jot down things that you've accomplished in the past that were difficult, but show that you're capable of getting over tough challenges. And again, like I said, this is so important because confidence comes from past experiences. So you might have someone saying, hey, you can do it, we're rooting for you, we believe in you, so on and so forth. But if you don't have real past experiences to say to yourself, no, I actually can do this, then it falls flat. So in any situation when you're challenged and like, oh, can I pitch this client? Can I really build this business? You can remind yourself of all the difficult things you've done before in the past. So yes or no in the chat, have you ever accomplished something difficult? Just yes or no, have you ever accomplished anything difficult? And that can be graduating high school, it could be making a sports team, could be getting a job at a really tough company, whatever makes sense. Jay, it's funny when at first I saw not really. I thought that was your previous response, and then you said yes. I'm like, all right, I'm pretty sure you have. Charlotte, you have too. And as we're going through a few examples, I'm going to encourage all of you to think of one that you want to share. Dr. Lisa Hammonds, I know you have. So think of one example that you want to share in the chat, and I'll share a few of mine. So on the health side, I ran a Spartan race, which is like this obstacle course race where you run like, I think it's like a 5K, and you go through like 20 obstacles. And for me, that was a lot of fun because I was not in shape for years at the time. So that was a big accomplishment for me. On the other side, I was also a Division I athlete, which is a pretty big accomplishment because a small fraction of anyone who plays high school sports goes on to become a Division I athlete. So just on the health perspective, when I'm at the gym, even like today, I can think to myself, like, dude, like, I know you're tired right now, but you ran a Spartan race. You're a D1 athlete. You can do another pull up, right? So that's the benefit of having these epic thoughts that you have banked in your head. And again, I want you to share at least one in the chat as we're going through this, right? For career, I could say, I got into business school. And when I got into business school, it was really tough for me because I cannot afford any kind of test prep whatsoever. I actually had to go to the library to rent books to prepare for the test. And a lot of people I was competing with, they were coming to the US just to go to school. My school is 40% international. And I still got into business school. So years later, when I was applying to work at Facebook, I knew how competitive it was. But I also knew from history that I was capable of competing with the best in the world and still making it, right? So personal goals, one of mine is I raised 4 kids during the pandemic, and I think that alone is enough. Like to realize like you made it through. I think it was like 18 months my kids didn't go to school. Made it through that period of time alive. Again, a good way to boost your confidence. So I can say all these things to myself whenever I'm struggling, whenever there's a little bit of doubt, whenever I feel like an imposter. I can remind myself, dude, you've done all these things before. You can do this one thing, right? So let's pause here. I want everyone to just go ahead and pop in one thing that they can say is one of their epic thoughts. And again, Dr. Lisa Hammonds, I'm pointing at you because you said, "Oh yes," which means I know you have one. I guess go to med school could be one. But let's just get one that we can crank out here and share. And again, the goal here is to remind yourself of something difficult you've done in the past that has prepared you for more challenges going forward. So Carmelita, public speaking, yeah, that's like one of the number one fears of anyone that they have is public speaking for whatever reason, and I can see that. So for you to do that, I remember like the first time I did public speaking, luckily it was a small audience, but the next time it gave me the confidence that hey, I know how to do this. I can make it through a talk and not mess up too much. Um, Dr. Lisa Hammond's launching your business. Yeah, I can understand it because I mean, I'm guessing if you're a doctor, everyone assumed you're going to go a certain route in your life, and you're like, I want to do that still, but I also want to do this as well. And some people, might feel like that's not the best idea, but you're brave and you did it, so I dig it. Rachel changed careers, right? So again, you told yourself, I made this pivot in my life as an adult, and here's what happened. Um, JJ saved a federal contract for the company I work for, and I'm sure that's a lot of money too, right? So if I were you, I'd be writing that down and reminding people that I saved a bunch of money for that contract. But again, these are the things you want to do. And what I'm asking you to do is to write down 10 of these. I'm asking you to write down 10 of these, not right now, but over the course of the next week, write down 10 of these. And remember, they don't have to be like this monumental thing, like I ran a marathon. It could be, hey, I apologize to this estranged relative that I had, or I graduated high school. I'm the first person in my family to do so. Whatever is a meaningful accomplishment for you, that is what you want to jot down and document. And anytime you're feeling like you can't do something, you take a look at that list and you say, you know what? If past is any prologue, I think I can, right? So Charlotte's saying, she's divorced and raised 3 boys. Geez, like I'm barely raising 2 boys, and I have a wife. So that alone is a huge accomplishment, and I commend you for that. So again, it's tough sometimes when we've already been through tough times, and it's like we have to go through tough times again. It's like, aren't I done now? But sometimes they're preparing you for these tougher times ahead, or at least equally as tough. You can continue moving forward when others will just quit, right? So again, please do go ahead and document those epic thoughts. Okay. What I want to do here is pause for a moment, and I'm going to share something I'm doing and then share how I messed it up, and how I hopefully recovered from it as well. So on my end, I'm rolling out a new coaching program to my audience. And the thing that makes it different is it's an AI powered coaching program where essentially you'll get access to this AI agent that has all my information. You can ask it questions. If you have more questions still, once a week, I'm available for people to ask me questions during group office hours. But like all of you, I want to make sure that my audience was actually interested in this offer, right? So we always want to do some kind of testing with our audience before we just launch something. So on my end, I know automatically the fastest way for me to get a good response is from my newsletter. So if I go on social media, I might get some votes, so on and so forth. But my newsletter, that audience, these people know, like, and trust me to the point where they've signed up for my newsletter. So what I did on Tuesday is I created a newsletter. I said like, good information. And near the end, I was like, hey, by the way, I'm thinking of rolling out this coaching program. Please let me know if you would be interested. I'm not asking to sign up now, just if you would be interested. And there was a poll in there, you'd vote on it, like, yes, very interested, someone interested, so on and so forth. And I got a decent number of responses. I was like, holy cow, this is great, right? So I go look at their responses and just yes or no in the chat. Has anyone ever done that before? Has anyone ever surveyed their audience to learn more about what they're looking for before they launch a product, a service, maybe feedback in general on customer service, anything like that? Not yet. Okay, that's fine. You tried, at least if you tried, I'm curious if you can tell me why maybe it didn't work. But let me continue this story, and then actually I'll tell a side story, then I'll get to my story, right? One of the best questions you can ever ask your audience is what kind of feature or product update could we make where we could double the price and you would gladly pay it? Like that'll give you an idea about how to optimize your offering. But let me go back to what I was saying in regards to my poll that went out to my audience. So again, I get this really great feedback. I'm really excited about it. I go to look at the results, and the way that I set it up in this tool called ConvertKit, I didn't properly tag people who responded to the poll. So I couldn't follow up with anyone who said, yes, I'm very interested. So I was like frustrated. It's like, shoot, like there's like around like 10 people or so that hit that button, and I couldn't even see who they were because I didn't tag them properly in this tool. So I was thinking to myself, well, shoot, this is not cool. My newsletter does not go out again for another 3 or 4 days. I'm gonna have to wait that long to get this feedback. I need this feedback so I can update my sales page for this program and start booking sales calls even. That would be great going into the weekend. So I said to myself, you know what? Like, I know I usually don't send emails, back to back, especially like, a Wednesday and a Thursday, or sorry, a Tuesday and a Wednesday. But I was like, I'm just going to see like what happens. What if I did? What if I did email my audience with some really good information and at the beginning said, you know what? I messed up. I meant to say this in my I meant to do this in my last newsletter. I didn't do it. What would happen? And that phrase, what if, just unlocks so many like barriers that we create in our head, right? We create all these artificial barriers. Oh, I can't do this because, I'm not qualified. I can't do this because, I haven't been doing it long enough. I can't do this because my platform's not big enough. When you say to yourself, what if, you just remove that artificial barrier. So I was like, you know what? What if I just send another email? And that's exactly what I did. I'll show you right now on my screen. I sent another email the very next day, and I was like, hey, can you help me out? Earlier this week, I shared a poll asking if you'd be interested in joining my new program. Fortunately, many of you said yes. Unfortunately, I forgot to track who voted. I know, pro level move. So if you're interested, can you please vote again so I can follow up? And here it is, just in case you missed it, right? So here's the poll. So again, I just owned it. I was like, yeah, I messed up. Can you help me out? And if you look, I can look at the analytics now and see that there were 60% of people who voted said yes, they were very interested. That's only 14 people. That's like 10 yeses, though. So from these 10 yeses, the next step is to go ahead and book sales calls with them. But to my surprise, 2 people already booked sales calls from that one newsletter. So had I not been like, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. What if I do it? What's going to happen? I would not have booked those 2 sales calls, and I would not have seen who actually voted for this. So I could book more sales calls going forward. So I'm going to pause now and just ask a question. Do you see how this simple tactic can be helpful in just getting out of your own way sometimes when you're just convincing yourself that, hey, this thing's not going to work, or like they're never going to say yes to me, or you're saying no for yourself before anybody else does? Have you had that issue before where you're just like, like you almost want to do something, you just hesitate and you don't do it? But anyways, that's the point. Like, it's just teach yourself how to go for it and heal out the fear, barrier creeping. Yeah. I I have this prompt. I have this prompt that I created for all of you, and we don't have to necessarily have to go through it right now, but it's a prompt to help you more or less get over that fear using AI. Actually, I'll share my screen one more time so you can see what I'm talking about. So anyone who else who wants to poll their audience, what I did with AI is I said, hey, look, here's this program I'm trying to sell, and I just gave it all this information about the program. Here's my target audience. I want to free qualify who may or may not be interested. So I was like, what's a good way for me to even free key this up to my audience? And it said, well, you should create a value driven newsletter first. And then after you give all that value, ask people, hey, do you want more value from me as a coach? Like, don't just send out a poll. So that's what I did. And it gave me all the questions that I was going to ask as well. So that's where I did it. Colin Powell, I'm sure a lot of you know who he is. He has this rule about procrastination, the 40-70 rule. And what he says is he never makes a decision or moves forward without at least like 40% of the information available or at least like 40% confidence. But he never waits to go above 70% confidence or 70% of the information available because that means he's waiting too long. So less than 40%, you're being reckless. More than 70%, like you're taking way too long, right? You're letting perfection be the enemy of progress. So Charlotte, if that helps at all, that might help you move forward. That's how Colin Powell is, running our military. Just saying 40%, good enough. But what I was gonna say is I'm in the this workbook that I'll share an example of right now. I'm giving you these prompts, these tools they can run through AI. So this one's like, what if I'm struggling with this fear? Help me reframe it in three ways using what if questions that inspire possibilities, not paralysis. And I'll give you an example down here. I'm struggling with raising my prices. Help me reframe it using three what if questions that inspire possibility, not paralysis. And I'll just run this through ChatGPT right now and see what happens. So this is like the most dangerous thing you can do during a presentation. But there you go. So here's the what if statements that inspire possibility, not paralysis. All right. What if raising my prices attracts the right clients who value my work and fully commit? Because low prices don't build strong partnerships, they build resentment. Nice. What if charging more actually improves the results I deliver since I have more time, energy, and focus for each client? More value for them, not just more value revenue for you. What if my next level of growth requires this move and undercharging is the final holding back, bottleneck holding me back? Staying small isn't noble, it's expensive, right? So I like this. You know what I mean? It's just saying like, oh gosh, I'm afraid to raise my prices. What are the benefits of this? And again, like whatever your problem is, like whatever fear you have, whatever's holding you back, you can try running it through this too. Now that said, with any type of AI platform, the more it already knows about you, the better it can give you good information because it'll say like, oh, remember that time you did this? Remember the time you did that? So on and so forth. So in our past two sessions, we've been talking a lot about AI and just like keeping all this information within the same platform that we can pull from your past experiences when it gives you this type of advice as well. Jay, you're saying, would that type of poll work when dealing with customers that are not using social media for complex products? It depends how complex the product is, but in many cases, yeah. I mean, I've seen surveys and polls work like in pretty much every industry. So, I mean, you might want to tweak the way you're asking the question, but no, it's a pretty common approach. So yeah, and again, I would like if you need help with the questions, I would use AI for that. But yeah, that's what I would do. But all the prompts I'm going to share throughout the day, you already have access to them in that document. Just make a copy of it. You'd be in a good spot. So again, just using that what if filter, and that way you're not you're not telling yourself no before the world does. Because again, like with any big ask, if that's what's holding you back, if you ask, the answer will be yes or no. But if you don't ask, the answer is automatically no. So you might as well go ahead and ask and to see what happens because you never know what's going to happen. And I see this happen a lot. I will pause one more time to talk with people who are like coaches or consultants. They'll say things like, "Oh, but what if I'm not a certified coach?" Like there are a lot of certified coaches that aren't good because they don't have real experience, right? And there's a lot of people who have real experience that aren't certified coaches because they didn't bother doing that. They just started helping people. So sometimes these titles, these, the press we're getting, all that stuff makes us think that we're not enough yet. But really, if you just say like, you know what if I just went for it? You might see that you're self-sabotaging yourself through that belief. So again, that's the whole point of that filter. Okay, cool. So with that, next up, goal setting. Sometimes the problem with planning your week is planning to plan. You see what I'm saying by that? Like actually taking the time to plan, because sometimes when you're sitting down like planning, you feel like that's a form of procrastination. You're like, I should be working right now. Like I only have X amount of time to work. I'm sitting here like talking about work instead of doing it. And that's why setting aside time to plan makes sense. For me, it's often on Sunday night. I just do that so that way I can hit the ground running Monday, because I normally wake up at like 4:30 in the morning just to get a head start in the day. And what you don't want to be doing at 4:30 in the morning is trying to figure out what you're going to do, right? So like, if I'm up that early, I just want to get started with that. And when you get in this rhythm of planning your week on Sunday nights, that can actually help get rid of some like the like some people who have like the Sunday scaries or whatever, you dread Monday. If you plan Monday in a way that you're actually going to enjoy, maybe not all day, you're more likely to look forward to, because you know, oh, I have this cool thing I'm doing at 1 o'clock, or this fun project I'm going to be working on at 2 o'clock, or whatever it is. So that's another benefit of planning, is it just makes Sundays go better. Even though you are doing work, you're framing your Monday and the rest of your week in the way that's going to be enjoyable as well as impactful. So let's talk about that now, and we'll walk through this. So yes or no, do you remember our conversation about OKRs, objectives and key results? This is how I like to do any kind of planning with my clients. So the objective is going to be some major goal you want to accomplish in the next like 90 days. So maybe it's going to be making, I don't know, like $100,000 or $1,000, or getting 10 clients, whatever it may be. The key results are the measurable outcomes that show progress. So these are like the things you're doing. If you want to make $100,000, maybe one thing is, and you're brand new, you need an offer and a website. Another thing is you have to set up your marketing strategy. A third is how you would deliver on your promises, so on and so forth. So the benefit of having these OKRs is you know what your big goal is for the quarter, normally 90 days, as well as what key milestones must you hit in order to achieve that goal. And again, whenever I'm working with my clients, that's the way we set this up. We do these 90-day sprints, and we set up their OKRs. So here's one example OKR. The OKR here is to reach $120,000 in annual revenue. All right, this is annual. So over the next 12 months, I want to make $120,000. Sorry, $120,000. And what that would mean is I need to make $10,000 a month, right? So no big surprise there. Now, if you need to make $10,000 a month, I might say to myself, well, that means I need to also sign 3 new clients per month based on how much I ask, or how much I charge. That's another key result, signing 3 new clients per month. And then converting 25% of leads, because if I know if I convert 25% of leads, it'll ladder up to me actually closing enough money to hit that $10,000 mark. So that's another benefit of looking at your OKRs. You can check for feasibility, right? If I want to make, pretend it's like $1 million this year, that means I got to make around like, I think it's $83,000 a month. Is that feasible? Well, if you're only charging $2,000 a project, that means you have to do 40 projects a month to make $80,000 a month. And if you can't do 40 projects a month, you either have to charge more or realize you're not going to make $1 million. So again, when you're going through this process, it lets you better understand how to go ahead and properly create your OKRs, but also tether your thoughts to reality to make sure that you're not either underselling yourself or overselling your ability as well. So what I want to do now, if you're okay with it, is I want to show you how you can use a prompt to come up with your OKRs. Is that cool if I show you a prompt I created that'll show you how to create OKRs for your business over the next 90 days? All right, we got some yeses. So fun tip here, if you're ever running a webinar like this, ask an obvious question and say, is it okay if I show you that? That way you get more people participating. So anyways, I will show you how to do that right now. Here we go. So, and again, this is the same prompt that you already have access to. I'm showing it with my my information, but you already have access to this prompt through that document that I just gave to you. So this is the prompt. Act like my advisor. Help me define bold OKRs for my business. And then the most important thing you have to do is you have to insert as much information as possible about your business and services here. So maybe it's like, here's exactly what I do, here's what I charge, here's my goal, here's my website. But again, the more information that you give the tool, the more bespoke and accurate the outcome will be. So let's see what this one gives me in regards to OKRs. And by the way, I said I want to make $50,000 for my coaching program in the next 90 days. It's $1,000 a month. I also sell VIP days for $5,000. I have 27,000 LinkedIn followers and 11,000 email subscribers, and I'm a public speaker. So I'm giving it some data. So the objective one is to generate $50,000 in revenue from VIP coaching. And the key results are saying getting 15 clients at $1,000 a month, book 3 VIP days at $5,000 each, and maintain a minimum close rate of 30% on sales calls. Another objective is to increase qualified leads. I'm not going to go through all this stuff. And also optimizing a system, creating a system for conversion and retention. So like this email sequence, once people sign up from an email list, getting to go through and make a purchase, right? So with this, it's also saying, do you want me to make a plan on this? So it'll go even deeper and give you very specific information. Okay, you can say like, all right, well, how am I supposed to enroll these 15 coaching clients? Give me tips on that based on what you know about that, right? Or, if you're saying like, build a 5 email nurture sequence for new leads that directs to a sales calls, can you write that for me, right? So the more information you ask it to double click on this, the more bespoke outcome you're going to get. And in this case, what I was saying, like, hey, build a 5 email nurture sequence for me, I would first say, who's widely known as the best person or organization in the world to write this type of newsletter, this type of email sequence for my audience? It might say like, I don't know, Omar Smith, it doesn't matter. I'll say, great. Pretend like we consulted Omar Smith on how to write this email sequence and write it the way that he would teach us how to write it. Do you see what I'm saying? Like anything that you need within this plan that makes sense, and you're like, okay, how do I actually do that? Actually ask for more help. But when you ask for more help, pre-qualify it, right? So going back to what Jay was saying, he's like, I work in this industry. What type of information, would be more beneficial for that? Or if it's a nonprofit, I work at a nonprofit. What's the best way to communicate with them? The more information you give it, the more bespoke it is, the better outcome you will receive. All right. So let me pause here. Does this make sense the way we're approaching this, where we're using, in this case, AI to create our OKRs, our goals for the next 30 days or 90 days, sorry. We're good. Keep double clicking, because what I'll say later is, have it give you like, it could be an annual plan or a 90-day plan, but then get granular and say, okay, what should I do every week? You know what I mean? It's like you can say every month, but what should I do every week? And you can get even more granular saying, here's my availability. I'm available between like 9 a.m. and 2
Oh,
p.m. Monday through Friday. Thursdays I'm available this time. Based on the goals you're giving me, when can I actually do this stuff? Because then
okay.
it's like, hey, look, I would like to get all this stuff done too, but I got 4 kids. So when can I do it? So that's how I program my week. But if something gets thrown off, like this week, I'm not really working today or tomorrow because I forgot my kids are home. I can have it just reassess like how to plan the next week based on the fact that some things did not get done this week. So that's the benefit, is really double clicking and trying to get more granular with it as you get that bespoke outcome from it. And what I would say is like any output you get, like you don't have to just say, okay, cool, let's do this. Like you can push back, or if it seems like, I don't want to do that, say, hey, give me other options or whatever. So yes, it should help. And the more that any of us give it direction, like pretend you read this book or pretend you took this course or pretend this person's consulting us, the better. But you can push back, you know what I mean? Like just keep on going back and forth until it feels like you're in a good spot. But yeah, I mean, for all of us, the more we get used to using these tools, the better. And I mean, I'll go a bit further. I mean, right now, this is like kind of like phase one of using AI, in my opinion, like using ChatGPT to create content and get guidance from it. Phase two is using agents. So agents that actually do a series of tasks and actually execute tasks as well. And that's where I'm trying to get with my business, is actually using agents to do things on my behalf, right? To say, like write a newsletter about this, and it'll automatically go through the whole process of like writing a newsletter and even uploading it and sending it to my audience. That's where I want to get eventually. But let's just start here, get real comfortable here. And even spending like half an hour a week on this type of stuff will be a good fit for all of us to get more acclimated. Everyone, that's going to be one of your homework assignments, by the way, is to do those OKRs. And again, like I was saying before, the way you break them down, we're going to talk about that right now, into routines. That's how you get the biggest impact from it. So with that, let's talk about routines. So one concept that I was introduced to at this training, actually, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. At this training I went to down in Atlanta was MIT's most important tasks. So what are the 2 to 3 things that you should be doing every day in order to move the needle in your business? Or it could be every week as well, but the things that you just know have to get done. So like one of my most important tasks is writing my newsletter. I know if that does not happen, a lot of things fall apart because first of all, I get paid by sponsors who send out that newsletter. If it doesn't go out, I don't get paid. Second of all, that's how I sell products and coaching too. So again, if I don't have that together, I'm in trouble. Another MIT that I have, and this one might seem counterintuitive or at least time consuming, is every day DMing people who engage with my LinkedIn content and then asking, why'd you engage with this? Like, what stood out to you? My goal is to improve my content. And there's 2 reasons for that. One is the goal actually is to improve my content. The more feedback I get, the better. But the other is often those conversations turn into sales calls because I'll say things like, "Hey, Dr. Lisa, I saw you engage with my post about this. What stood out to you? I just want to improve my content." And she might say, "Oh, I like how clear you are and how you explain this." I might then come back and say, "Well, are you struggling with that? Do you have questions about that? Maybe I can answer some more." And then within a series, period of like hours, all of a sudden we're on a sales call. So that's an MIT for me because instead of doing kind of cold calling, I can do what I call warm calling, which is reaching out to someone who already engaged with my content and then saying, "Would you like some help?" Now, on my end, I actually don't do that myself. I have someone else do it for my account, but that is what I'm saying is an MIT, something that must be done in order for me to grow my business. So when you have your OKRs, a lot of acronyms, you're going to have like essentially MITs that sit underneath those to make sure you're actually hitting those goals. So I'll stop with the acronyms for now, but let me share my screen and kind of walk through this a bit more. So one thing you have to realize is activity doesn't always equal progress. So we're really focused on intentionality and just having a clear goal on what we're trying to do. But you're not necessarily going to be stacking up wins every day. So sometimes the win that you have to record is the fact that you went through these MITs. And if you can do that and just realize that the consistency is really what leads to these big events, then you really do see that as a big win as opposed to like a check the box moment. So on your end, I'm going to share this prompt with you, and we're not going to go through this one right now. But essentially, you're going to say, like, here's my goals for the week. What are the top 3 MITs that I have to do in order to make meaningful progress? Or it could be, here are my OKRs for the quarter. Help me break down my MITs on a weekly basis. That's the one you're going to use if you really want to double click and get very specific on how you're going to structure your days. And again, if you tell ChatGPT when you like to do certain types of work, like maybe you're more creative in the morning like I am, you can say schedule this type of stuff in the morning, this type of stuff in the afternoon, and also build in time for breaks as well. So that way, by design, you have this optimized schedule, but it's not optimized to keep you at your desk the whole time doing as much work as possible. It's saying, hey, I also have to drink water. I also have to go to the gym. I also have to do all these other things. Build it into my schedule, and that's how you actually build a life. You build a business around your life as opposed to the other way around. So do take time to do this. I know it involves some double clicking and some customization. But if you do that, you have the perfect schedule laid out for you. And again, if anything ever comes up, your kids are home or whatever it is, it's super easy to make adjustments because you just tell ChatGPT, hey, by the way, I have to make an adjustment. All right. Okay. So we talked about this earlier, and I know a lot of you don't do it, but what I want to do now is talk about weekly planning. And I may have shared my weekly planning sheet before. If not, I'm going to go through it with you right now. But essentially, what you want to do is think about your 3 biggest goals for the week. 3 biggest goals for the week. based on your OKRs. So that's why, again, like the framework here is so perfect because you're going to say, look, over the next 90 days, I want to accomplish this. And then when you're looking at your three biggest goals for the week, those are going to ladder up to your OKRs, and therefore you're going to make steady progress towards that. But one thing that most people don't do is they don't think about how they might mess up their plans, like how things might go downhill. So, in addition to coming up with the three tasks that or three biggest goals for the week, you also want to identify roadblocks that might stop you from actually hitting that goal. So, I'm going to share my screen real quick, and you're all going to get a copy of this, so you can grab it whenever you want. But this is the goal setting and accountability sheet that I use for my business as well as all my clients. So with my clients, every Monday they have this filled out, and every Friday we go over it. But really, the thing is, you're going to say, okay, what is one of my big goals for the week? In this example, it's like, getting my deck created for an online course. Then for these big goals, you're going to say, okay, well, what are the sub tasks that sit underneath this? So every big goal is going to have more tasks. In this case, it could be creating the outline, images and graphics, and finding someone on Fiverr to create it. Next big goal, same thing, so on and so forth. So you normally don't want to have more than three big goals every week. Honestly, you can just have one big goal if it's going to take you a long time. So the goal here is not to look as productive as possible. The goal here is to make intentional progress and be able to measure it, but not to burn yourself out by just trying to get as much done as you can in a short period of time. So once you do this, you're going to also have what I call a pre-mortem, thinking about how could you mess this up by not doing certain things. So for example, not blocking up time for your action items, not communicating to your team properly, taking on too many projects, so on and so forth. You're going to proactively think about this. And I like to keep this list on my screen, or at least in view, or at least once in a while look at it, like don't do these things. And as a result, it helpfully stops me from messing up. But then after the next week, you're going to go through your weekly evaluation. You're going to do this assessment. Did I complete all my goals? If not, what happened? And just be honest with yourself. It's almost like a journal. How was my attitude? How good was my work? Did I create a process to avoid any challenges going forward? And what are your wins? So does this sound like a system that you would feel comfortable using on a regular basis, where again, you're planning your big goals every week, the tasks that sit underneath them, and then beyond that, okay, well, how can I mess this up by not going through these, by not stopping myself from having this challenge? It'll take you a while to get consistent. Well, you can gamify that. So I have this app on my phone called Streaks, and the goal is to keep a streak of things you're supposed to be doing, like meditation, stretching. I drink 128 ounces of water every day. So every time I meet that goal, I put a little X there, and the goal is to maintain the streak. So that's one thing you could do is just say, okay, let me maintain a streak of consistently planning my goals, and even have someone hold you accountable for it, and therefore you're kind of stuck doing it, right? You're going to say, okay, every Monday you got to share your sheet with me, I'll share mine with you, and then every Friday let's go ahead and review how well we did. That alone would increase your chances or your odds of doing this. And I think I mentioned this before, but when you have an accountability partner, your chance of like hitting your goal goes up by 95%. So that's what I would do. Just take this and just find a buddy and you'll be in a good spot. Another thing I want to do is have you go through this continuous improvement model called stop, start, continue, change. And I give you instructions here. But essentially what you're going to do is every week think to yourself, all right, based on everything I've done, all my tasks, all my activities, what should I stop doing? Because it's probably a post there somewhere. It doesn't really matter. What should I stop doing because either it's a waste of time, it's not really beneficial, it's a waste of resources, whatever it may be. On my end, I stopped doing like audiograms for my podcast because like no one was checking those out. I stopped posting on TikTok because that was kind of a waste of time too, and I was paying people to do it. So that's something you can look at end of the week and say like, you know what? I'm not going to keep on doing this. This is kind of silly. It's a waste of my time. The next thing is what can you continue doing? What should I continue doing? And that's normally something that you might have started doing in the past or started doing recently that's kind of working to an extent. Okay, that whole thing where I DM people and ask them, why they like my content, that's working. I'm going to continue doing that because of that. Another one is start. So you can say, okay, That guy Terry, I heard him say that it's a good idea to like do a survey of your audience. I'm going to start doing that every time I have a new product or service. That way I can make sure that it's ready to go. And the last one is change. So what is something that's going kind of well, but if you tweaked it a bit more, it would work better. So maybe it's like how you're using AI to create your social media content. You're going to change it by giving it more personal information, so therefore it does not sound like a robot. But going back to that weekly planning sheet that I shared with you, that's a good way for you to just always just evaluate yourself. Like, and it's tough to be honest, because end of the week sometimes you just want to like shut down and be done. But when you have this moment of reckoning by design every week, you don't let bad habits keep on going by and to a point where it's like it's detrimental to your business. And one problem that I had was I kept on skipping meetings with my salesperson because they just weren't doing that well. I was like, it's a waste of my time. So I was like, I'm going to stop working with that person and ended up like letting it go. So again, sometimes you're forced to make really tough decisions at the stop part. But again, if you're just thinking, okay, based on everything I want to accomplish, all my goals, it's just pulling me towards it or away from it, you might find if there were some tough decisions you have to make, but at least you have the chance to make them before they get too detrimental for your business. So the last thing I want to talk about in regards to systems is actually let me stop because there's a question maybe starting is the hardest part. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And that's where like the accountability partner can help because it's hard for me too. Like I never want to make it seem like I'm perfect. I struggle with this as well. That's why I have systems in place because I struggle with these things. Um, so the next thing I want to talk about is like working because a few things. One is when you're working, you have to give yourself a chance to succeed by eliminating distractions. And a lot of distractions are external, right? It's Slack, it's the emails, it's your phone, so on and so forth. So, first of all, take responsibility and turn all those notifications off. Another distraction might be your workplace. So you can't work in a messy environment. Like I'm scanning my office right now. Like I know it's tempting, like when it's like, you're running late or like, you're busy as it is, to have like, some kind of like mess around, but you can't think clearly with just like garbage around. Like that's the one thing like I can't do. Like I can't have things like, my sunglasses don't have to be over here, my phone charger has to be over here. Like just make sure your environment supports quality work because otherwise you're fighting distractions to even focus on your work. But another thing to be aware of is your internal distractions. My buddy Nir Owl wrote a book called Indistractable, and he discovered that the majority of distractions are internal. They're not external. We might blame external things, but really they're internal. So just locking in on your work, part of it is thinking about the purpose behind it. Like, why am I actually doing this? Like, what's the outcome? Especially when you're doing boring work, you have to think, okay, how does this like seemingly insignificant thing ladder up to bigger goals? Well, look at your OKRs. Look at your OKRs, then your key results, then your initiatives, and you see how they ladder up to it, right? So again, we want to make sure you're in a good environment and your mindset's in the right space as well. Because often when we struggle to make progress in our business, it's because of one of three things. It's our mindset, our motivation, or our methods. So you can do a quick audit too, like why am I stuck? Is my mindset like I don't know, like I think I'm okay there. Is my motivation? No, I actually like doing this stuff. Like I need to make money. Maybe it's my method. Oh gosh, I got to work on my process, right? So again, a good chance to do a self evaluation if you're ever like this stuck not wanting to work. Think: is it my mindset? Is it my motivation, or is it my methods? It's possibly one of those three. Um, but with that, you also want to think about like how long you are going to work for. How long do you allocate time for tasks? And I use the Pomodoro method. So the Pomodoro method is a way of working in a series of sprints. And the goal is to make sure that you're very focused when you're working, but you're not burning out because you're staring at the screen for like 3 hours straight without any kind of break. So the way it works is you decide what task you have to complete. And again, you would get this from your OKRs as well as your MITs. And then set the timer for 25 minutes. 25 minutes of straight work, no distractions, no phones, no getting up to use the restroom, none of that stuff. Just work. Work until your task, until the timer rings, and take a short 5-minute break. So if you do that 4 times, you're going to get, was that about 2 hours worth of work in? Is that two? Yeah, 2 hours worth of work in. And that's a good chunk of time, right? So this is the approach that I take towards my work, except instead of going for 25 minutes straight, what I like to do is I go for 50 minutes straight, just because for me, like 25 isn't enough. Like I'd rather just kind of push through a bit more. So I work for 50 minutes straight and then take a 10-minute break. And in that 10-minute break, I'm not browsing social media. I'm not like doing anything silly. I might be checking emails quickly and or getting a drink of water, stretching my legs on the roof. Nothing that's gonna like throw me off to a point where it's hard for me to get back into the groove of my work, because otherwise it's like you're kind of back to the drawing board. But I realize if I can just like get 3 hours worth of this concentrated work in, that's all I have to do per day. It's just 3 hours of really, really solid work. So that's why I do the 50-minute session instead of 25 minutes. Because that way I know I only need 3 sprints per week, or sorry, per day to get my work done. And what I like to do is I wake up at 4:30 in the morning. That way, sometimes I can get one or two of those sprints done before my kids even wake up. That's why I'm kind of tired right now. But on my end, if I get two of those sprints done before my kids wake up, before 7 a.m., I only have to work for like an hour or so during the day. Now I'm going to do other stuff, but like when I'm at the gym for like 2 hours just hanging out, I'm cool because I already got my work done this morning and I only have to work for like another hour. That's the benefit of being so super focused with your work. But with that, you also have to set up boundaries. And that's often pretty difficult in regards to when you can take meetings, when you can take phone calls, when you can work, so on and so forth. And that's when you really, really, really have to just double down and say, hey, look, I set up this system for a reason, right? I went to that guy's workshop. He taught me all the stuff about how to structure my business, my quarters, my days, and all that stuff. And I have to protect this time because I know I'm very creative, like before noon. Afternoon, I'm not creative whatsoever. I know one of my MITs is writing my newsletter because that guy said it's a great way to get in front of your audience. I can't do that if I'm so drained from talking to people in the morning. Therefore, I have to write my newsletter in the morning and then have meetings in the afternoon. So you are going to have to be very bullish with these boundaries at times. But again, that's how you actually build a business around your life as opposed to building your life around your business. So be bullish with those boundaries. Sorry, I can't talk. When it comes to your business right now, what is the thing that's holding you back the most or keeping you up at night? What if you could solve, like, what one problem could you solve that would make everything easier or unnecessary? And there's this book you might have heard of before called The One Thing, where there's a focusing question that you ask yourself. What is the one thing I could do such by doing so, everything becomes easier or unnecessary? And often that becomes your objective that you might have for the quarter. So like for Dr. Lisa, the one thing is like, hey, if I could just launch this training program, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary. For me in Q1 of this year, my one thing was getting my book proposal done because from there I get a book agent, get a book deal, publish my next book, so on and so forth. So that was my one thing. Why was that my one thing? Because by doing so, everything becomes easier or unnecessary. What becomes easier for me? Well, getting speaking gigs becomes easier because the book is out there. It's essentially a marketing device. Another thing that becomes easier is getting coaching clients. Why? Because people read the book, they want me to coach them, so on and so forth, right? So again, the one thing I could have done in Q1 that makes everything easier or unnecessary was going ahead and getting that book proposal done. The one thing in Q2 that'll make everything easier or unnecessary is getting that agent done, that coaching agent done. Therefore, all these new people that are going to be getting into my coaching program, they're going through the agents, not me. And I'm playing with my kids this summer, not on the phone all day long, right? So again, get very clear with that. And another thing that the author goes on to say is, until my one thing is done, everything is just a distraction. So you get very clear on the one thing for like the next 90 days. You say, okay, what's my one thing this quarter? It's whatever your objective is. Then you're going to say, okay, what's my one thing this month? The really big things that month. Then you say, okay, the one thing this month, this week, today, right now. And whenever you find yourself not doing the one thing, you stop, right? So again, in this moment, what is the one thing I could be doing that makes everything else easier or unnecessary? And often it's something very small that ladders up to something big, but at least you have more meaning in every moment because you know this is the one thing you should be doing. So going back to the beginning of the class here, that's the confidence we're looking for, is knowing that you're doing the one thing you should be doing at any given moment and realizing, oh, sure, maybe I'm not going to get the reward from that today, but it is coming so long as I am consistent. And by the way, I'm going to be continuously improving what I'm doing because I have this stop, start, change, continue method that guy told me about. Therefore, I'll never go too far in the wrong direction because I'm going to be checking in on myself every week. So that's the whole point of having this process set up here. All right, cool. So I'll show you something. This is a LinkedIn post that I put up a week ago. And the reason why I put this up is because I saw it got a lot of engagement on LinkedIn, sorry, on Instagram, because essentially this woman barely touches this referee and he gives her a T, like just acting like he got assaulted. And what I did was I just said, hey, like this is a perfect example of why overreacting makes you look foolish. But there are so many elements that went into this video that made people react to it. So one is it was a very bad call, right? I mean, in my opinion, like the guy literally walked into this woman and then said that she fouled him. And did she kind of touch him? Kind of, sort of, but that's clearly an overreaction. So some people are going to see this and be like, that's a horrible call and get involved with it. Some people are just like law and order folks. They're like, no, if you touch a ref, you get thrown out. That's how it goes, so on and so forth. And there were like clear, like possible elements of just straight up racism too. That people were like, hey, what the heck? You know, it seems like this guy has an issue with this woman because of how she looks. So what I did is I went to like AI and I was like, I'm gonna put up this video that shows this referee overreacting. I want to turn it into a story of how we often overreact to situations, though, and how we can be calmer as opposed to acting like this person. So that's what I did. I built it out using AI, the same prompts I gave you during our first session. So Charlotte, make sure you get that prompt. And basically, I just said like, hey, write a post that shows like why we shouldn't overreact. Give one tip on how not to overreact, and then tell people when they should overreact. For example, when that dream client finally emails you back. So that's what I wrote. And again, just kind of playing around, seeing what happened. And it just like took off for no reason. I got like 500,000 views and like 500 people commenting or liking, as a repost or whatever. But like, it's just funny how if you package content the right way, where like this content's already getting a lot of visibility, right? It's already went viral on Instagram, but then tell a story that's relevant to your audience and somewhat, I would say, controversial, all of a sudden you get all this engagement from it. So anyways, just showing you just repurposing content sometimes is a good way for you to create an interesting post. This one I might as well share. This one, I was speaking at Amazon, and this person said, that was great. I can tell you're not a professional speaker, but that was great. This was like 6 years ago. And I was like insulted to an extent. So what I did is I went home and I started studying Richard Pryor videos to see how well he performed on stage because I know my dad loved him. And that's how I became a better public speaker. So I'm, again, using this cultural icon, Richard Pryor, but in talking about my role as a public speaker and finding this intersection of how Richard Pryor played a role in growing my career and how getting insulted gave me the fire actually to grow my career, and wrapping this up in a story that people can actually digest, right? So the more you can take like these almost obscure examples from one realm and bringing them into another and telling a story around it, that's a cool way of standing out as well on social media because you're just putting more effort into your content. Um, so yeah, just wanted to share that. That's your boy Richard Pryor. Yeah, he's one of the greatest, obviously. Yeah, I dig him. And my dad looked so much like Richard Pryor. He used to sign autographs as Richard Pryor. Like there's people right now who think they have Richard Pryor's autograph. Like that was my dad. But he would do that all the time at like airports and stuff because like people just assume that was him. So all right, so we're gonna pause here. You are going to get an email with the homework that we talked about this week. Again, it's going to be those OKRs. It's going to be coming up with your MITs, as well as getting used to using these AI prompts to actually plan out your day. I would love to see that happen. Having a weekly schedule set up that you do your best to adhere to. Again, using these AI prompts, I'll bake another one into it. I'll update it before I send it to you. But just saying, hey, give me the perfect schedule. But then I'll also give you a prompt that says if my schedule changes, like update that as well. So that way, again, you always know at any given moment you're doing the one thing. And remember, until your one thing is done, everything else is a distraction. So what I want you to look out for is this, because it happens to me too. When you're working on a bigger project and it's just tough. It's like you have to spend days on this one thing, this one part of the project. So there's no variability. I get that. it's tempting to go spend some time doing this, spend some time doing that, so on and so forth. But again, until your one thing is done, everything else is just a distraction, including posting on social media at times. Like I love posting on social media, but sometimes I'm just not ready. I'm not prepared. I forget. And it's like I don't have time to do that because I have something else more important to do than post on social media. So again, getting very clear on that one thing, that's how we get that confidence. And the focusing question is, what is the one thing I can do? Such by doing so, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary. That's step one. And step two is until my one thing is done, everything else is a distraction. I want to say thanks for this because this is the type of stuff I love talking about. Like the nuts and bolts things, those are important, like the pricing and biz dev and sales and everything. But none of them will work if you don't have the confidence that you can actually do this. That's why we did those epic thoughts earlier. None of it's going to land as well. So thanks for taking the time to do some of this woo-woo stuff with me today, as well as some tactical stuff. But before we officially sign off here, oh, thanks, I appreciate it. And we're probably going to go for a family run. I've never done it before. Like you see in the commercials, like here's what a happy family does. I'm going to try that and see what happens. So I'll report back on how that goes next time. Yeah, you got it. I'm glad to help. Everybody, thank you. Have a great night. We'll be talking again, so get that work done. And I'm always here to support you. Well, I'm here when I'm live to support you. So I'll talk to you soon during office hours. So thanks, everybody. Take care.